Hello everyone, this is CM Kozeman. We're having a short podcast for a change because I have received some questions. Actually, I've received a lot of questions. These days, I don't know, we are heading steadily into 30,000 followers, which is a big number for me on YouTube. I know there are channels with far more followers, but I know that every one of you, for 30,000 people, however much you are like actually invested and interested in the things that I do, and for that I cannot be thankful enough. With this comparatively high number of followers comes a comparatively high number of engagement. I've been receiving lots of emails about if I can help someone with a school project or something, and unfortunately I have to turn a lot of these down. I mean, sometimes people straight up ask me if I can help them make a mood board for school or something. So, I mean, unfortunately I can't be there for you, but in some cases, like this one, I try to do my best. A week ago, I received a set of questions from a certain Alistair MacLellan, hello, and he said, can you answer a few questions for a school project? And I said, why not send me a list of questions so I can at least turn them into YouTube content, because a lot of you listen to these Q&A videos, and that's great. And so he did. So here we are answering Alistair's questions about my general practice in art and writing, and also some fun questions. But before beginning, please make sure to subscribe to this channel and try to play it back at 1.5 times the speed. Makes me sound like a cooler person. And also try to donate to me on Patreon. So far all of this has been a selfless act. I don't have any monetary pursuits. This channel is not monetized, and I don't plan to. But, if you can even donate to me on Patreon, you can, even if you can donate to me $1 a month, that makes a really big difference for me. So before beginning, please, donations. Alright, here we go. Now, Alistair's questions are mostly about All Tomorrows, which is this book I wrote more than, I don't know how much, 15 years ago. It was like an online free distribution project. It was about the future evolution of humanity. And it suddenly got really popular last year, which was 2021. And for that, I'm really thankful. So anyways, here he goes. In the creation of works like All Tomorrows, Tangent Worlds, or Decade, these two-letter works, they are free sketchbooks I have online. And Decade actually is a free book of all my paintings, freely available online. If you go to my website, cmkozeman.com, and click the little books button, you can get it. Anyways, in these books, he says, it seems there's a seamless blend in practical art and digital software. How much use of each would you have on a particular project? Do you prefer working in one way over another, and what programs do you use? I think this is a general question about how much traditional and how much digital medium or media I use. Basically, I like doing things with my hands. I don't like these sorts of iPad Procreate type of tablets, or those tablets with the screens in them. They're called Wacom Cintiqs. They are like big mammoth monsters. I find that when I work purely digitally, it leaves a sense of dissatisfaction, a sense of incompleteness. So for me, I always need to make some marks on paper. Of course, I can later on scan these papers and modify them heavily in the digital environment. But for me, it's a bit of a 50-50. If I'm painting for like gallery artwork or custom artwork, that's almost exclusively traditional. Watercolors, acrylics, gouache. I don't use oil. Aside from oil, I use pretty much everything under the sun. And when it comes to digital programs, well, I'm a sort of a boomer. I have Adobe Photoshop CS6. I don't use any fancy brushes. To make books, I use Adobe InDesign, but I even used Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint to make books previously. I mean, I put together the old All Tomorrow's book on Microsoft Word. If you can churn out PowerPoint PDFs, that's enough. Anyways, second question. What would you say is the central component to creating a story of any kind? What, in your opinion, is the most important aspect? Now, this is perhaps overrated praise, because I have written like one big complete story, and that was All Tomorrow's, and I almost disowned it because it was some college era yarn as far as I was concerned. So for this, I can only say that the central component to a story is the fact that that story is complete. You have to have a beginning and an end. These days, a lot of people say, I got this project, I got this story. They share their development sketches or notes, or they share half a chapter, and then slowly it peters out. Now, some of that is just life, and it's okay, but some of that is the psychological satisfaction. You mustn't reveal anything before finishing it. I mean, after finishing a story, you can go back and change things, that's okay, but you have to have a full story, a full product, if I may say, out there. You cannot have half an egg, and you cannot have half a story. And I mean, thankful as I am for these questions, don't look to me for great storytelling, because I don't know. Half the time I don't even know. I mean, I'm not really good with character writing. I'm not really good with sequential development. I just string a lot of interesting ideas one after the other, and I want them to be consistent, and I want it to start somewhere, lead somewhere else, and in between I wanted to show people unique things that hopefully they haven't seen before. Will you consider releasing hard copies of any work that is strictly an ebook? And what are the reasons for releasing an ebook or PDF? There is one reason above all: money. That's all. That's all there is. Releasing an ebook doesn't cost me a damn. I mean, it costs me zero. If I was to have print books, comes to something like nearly $10 a copy. Unless I print with a publisher and a publishing company, then it's cheaper, but I have to have like at least 1,000 copies. And those of anything, like 1,000 books don't sell rapidly. I know this for a fact from working with the publishing industry. A lot of people have books or magazines or fanzines of any kind, and they get really like hopeful, say, 1,000 copies, 2,000. And then what happens is, they sit in a room staring at hundreds of copies of books for years. 1,000 is a big number. If you're a freelance publisher, if you're considering publishing anything for the first time, your first publication run, 100, that's it. Especially with these print-on-demand services, there's really no point in printing things and holding them in a warehouse and shipping them out, unless you're dealing with really large numbers. And of course, at that time, you need to be able to deal with invoices, payments. You probably need to form a company of your own. That's just a hell of a hassle, hell of a red tape. I'd rather have one PDF circulating freely. Of course, I have published actual books, like on dead paper. But these are quite niche history books. Like I have one big encyclopedia about the apartment signs and architectural details of Istanbul. It's the big city in Turkey that I live in. And this book maybe sold like, I don't want to give any numbers, but didn't sell as many copies as one might hope. Most customers were very rich people because, hey, publishing an encyclopedia in color pictures really costs a lot. Or the purchasers were international libraries or institutions. I have some other books. For example, there's one about the biography of a psychiatrist from Istanbul. That didn't sell too much either. So, long story short, if you're publishing for the first time, try digital. Unless you're publishing something regional. Really, of course, ideally, I would like to have dead paper versions of everything I print in all sorts of libraries, but it can wait. Anyways, more questions. In projects like All Tomorrow's, the structure has a simplicity that works very much to its benefit. How do you decide the layout and structure for an artist book? Well, once again, we are generalizing for a very small sample size that I almost disowned. For All Tomorrow's, I just wanted to have these weird posthumans, so I invented a story for it. The story was almost an afterthought, but I was going to college in those days, in those years, so a little bit of that growing anxiety and my outlook on life, they must have crept into it, so somehow worked, but other than that, I don't know. The best consideration for the layout of a book is that it should be finished. Also, there are some technical details, like you never start a chapter from the even page. Also, like when you're having art books, a lot of people design these really fancy two-spread images because it looks really great on a screen. But when you print that, the center of the spread curves with the paper, and any details you might have on that center are usually misaligned or just curved, and they just don't view too good. And it's always a good idea to have some margin space on the edges of your papers, little considerations for like that. I say take your favorite physical book, look at it, and try to blindly copy its design elements. So there. Is sculpture a medium you have done? 3D models of some of your works would be really cool to see. Actually, I have tried some clay sculpting, but they just look like really interesting, weird paperweights. I don't think I have the expertise needed to go to that field. But if anyone wants to make 3D renditions of my creatures or artwork, they are more than welcome. And Alistair MacLellan asks, as a documentary media and film student, what are your thoughts on short film documentary made on an area of speculative evolution? For example, an adaptation of All Tomorrow's into a 6-episode series. So that would be a fake documentary, and ideally it would be an animated documentary, cel animated, like a Studio Ghibli film. But who knows? Certainly, speculative evolution could use a lot of documentaries, not just about animals or creatures evolving, but also about the lives of the people who deal with this. There are people like Dougal Dixon, Gert van Dijk, Sheeter, Dylan Badja, who designed the famous Serena project, and yours truly. Like a documentary about the lives of people like us who invent these artificial ecologies or big art projects. That's a character-driven documentary all of itself. And I think that's the best documentary you can do about speculative evolution. Because the projects are already there for everyone to read as books or websites or whatever. But the lives of the people who make these things, they're far more interesting. Anyways, then we come to Alistair's fun questions. Okay. If you were given the power to resurrect 3 extinct animals from the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic eras, what would they be? From the Mesozoic, it would be a big sauropod, because we cannot even imagine how they looked, lived, and moved, basically. One of the largest sauropods. That's something I'd like to see. From the Cenozoic, the time period after the evolution of dinosaurs, no, after the extinction of dinosaurs, it would probably be Gigantopithecus or the Homo floresiensis, the little Flores Island hobbit people. I would really like to see those guys. And from the Paleozoic, that is to say the era before the Triassic period in which dinosaurs evolved, oh, there's so many. Would probably have to be one of those gigantic sea scorpion creatures. I would love to see one of them in real life, how it swims, moves about, etc. And anyways, Alistair says, a personal favorite illustration I have is your illustration of an angel of the Old Testament. You can see it in the video description image. What are your thoughts or beliefs on the existence of a God? Doesn't necessarily have to be akin to any religious context, but as something being responsible for the creation of life. I think life is an emergent phenomenon. Like many places have life, I believe. But also, its exact mechanics and, as they say, where the tire hits the road. Certainly something there is currently not understood with as much precision as we would like to profess. That is to say, we certainly know that life can evolve and develop on its own without the need for a creator deity. But there are these things I always suspect. Like, where does behavior figure in evolution? Because if you think about it, imagine something basic like a hippo-like animal evolves into a whale. In order to do that, traditionally they say there are all these mutations, and the long-tailed mutation swims further and becomes a deeper diver, so it becomes more whale-like. Okay, yes, that happens a bit, but there's also another factor, and that's not just with whale evolution, it's with the evolution of flies, everything. Behavior. What drives an animal to act and live in a certain way so that these changes can make themselves manifest? To clear things up, let's look at the evolution of parasites. A lot of times, parasites evolve from an animal that perversely goes towards a larger animal that wants to eat it or whatever. There's a behavioral element to these things. And if you extend it, there's a spiritual element to that. Call spirits whatever you like. But those animals want to live that way. So they increase their chances of acquiring those mutations. I hope I could make myself clear. So I believe in that context, extending it, that all life is sentient. From microbes, plants, flies, to people. Maybe that expanse of sentience extends to areas where we cannot even discern life as we know it. Maybe the entire universe has a sort of spirit. Life itself might be the spirit that animates the universe to observe itself, to cause probability collapse and make itself real. I hope I didn't get too kooky there, but after 37 years, these are some of the more personal views that are beginning to form in my head. I don't believe in a sort of Abrahamic God, but I really believe those religions and those traditions of all kinds, not just within the Abrahamic world, but outside of it as well, they have a value. In the early 2000s, we were all fools. there used to be this movement, internet atheism. People believed that the internet would make organized religions obsolete and everyone would be super advanced and super logical and super debate bro, super religious, super irreligious. And that in turn would usher in an age of secular logic and advancement. Guess what? It didn't happen. I guess that whole internet atheism thing began as a very logical and a very needed backlash against the fundamentalist movements, especially in the United States, that were like from the 1980s onwards really having an effect on people. And people, of course, want to break free of these repressive communities, these cult-like communities. But it didn't happen that way, did it? Because religions also have a sense of community. They have generational stories that we tell ourselves, that communities use to maintain cohesion. So I don't know. There has to be a middle ground somewhere. I mean, for example, like when I pass away, I always said, just cremate me and have a secular ceremony. But now, as I get older, I feel, everybody could gather. There could be a prayer of some sort or the other. And that would make those people feel good about themselves, good about my memory. So that part of religion is never going to go away. Anyways, I hope that was a good answer. In works that perhaps have a higher level of speculation or possess fictitious elements, do you intend allegory? Is it intentional, or do you try to keep, some of your work free of interpretation? Well, this is a tough question. To do that, I need to get some tea. In order to do that, I need to get up for a second. So bear with me. And while you're waiting, consider logging on Patreon. Give me a donation. $1 a month, man. You know what $1 gets me every month? A whole pack of tea. My whole month's supply of tea is just $1. So get in there, people. Get me some tea. It's time for the famous Kozamanite sip. About allegory in speculative evolution. I guess I used to have a little of it, but now I don't like it. I mean, I think, my humble opinion, if you have like political caricatures in speculative evolution, two things happen, and both of these are bad. First, they get old quick. Imagine it's the Trump era, and you're having this kind of Trump pig creature or whatever. Okay, what's gonna happen in 20 years? Nobody, it's just gonna be a cartoon. So why don't you be a cartoonist? Why don't you be a satirist? I mean, cut the corners. Same thing. I mean, maybe these days you are one of those anti-vax people and you have this kind of view where all the vaccinated are zombies and allegory, cynicism, and irony. These are the three big diseases infecting the narrative arts in the 21st century, in my humble opinion. Of course, everyone is human, so some of our feelings may kind of filter into our works sometimes, but that's good to see in retrospect. Implying it is just cheap, in my humble opinion. At what point of your life did you become interested in biological subjects such as paleontology and evolution? This is a weird one. Oops. Oh, something. Oh, Alright, we had some memory troubles, but now we're back. Okay, answering this question. When did I become interested in paleontology and speculative evolution? For me, this was really easy since birth. I can't explain it. Since I was born, I was always interested in seeing, creating, and just spreading the word of strange creatures, you know. This could be like these monsters in cartoons, or these dinosaurs in history books, or insects in encyclopedias. They always grip my attention, and I have never been able to let go. Probably it's some psychological quirk lurking down there. I know this though, there's a lot of people like this who have been gripped by such a craving, such an interest since they were born. And people like these, we're all over the world. I don't know. If you're one of them, comment and let's get in touch with each other. Probably there's a kind of psychological reason behind it as well. Maybe comes from not wanting to associate with a distinctly human phenotype, or finding them boring or dangerous. I don't know. But hey, it's a trip. Anyways, another question. Which projects are you the proudest of? Well, I'm really proud of the attention All Tomorrows has received. I can't deny it. I'm also proud of All Yesterdays, that book which kind of like rode the crest of this changing view at dinosaurs, seeing them as real animals. And then I'm also really proud about this big encyclopedia I have of Istanbul's architectural details. If you're in the United States, Columbia University has a copy, Stanford University has a copy. You could go there and check them out. Other than that, I don't know. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to jinx anything, you know. Do you feel as an artist that any previous works... Do you feel as an artist that any previous work has warranted change in any way you would personally like to have done in retrospect? Of course, all of them. Like I make something, I look back at them 1 week later, I cringe, I want to change it. And usually I do change and revise a lot of little things on my website all the time. I always consider my works incomplete. I mean, even if it's like a published history book, I always go back, find some typo, something. I'm never fully comfortable. Maybe that's why I always keep working. How close to scientific accuracy are you? Does it hinder your artistic liberty in any way? Usually in most settings, I try to keep things pretty scientifically rigorous. It doesn't change my artistic liberty in any way, because truth, as you know, is far stranger than fiction. What general advice would you give to upcoming and aspiring creators? I mean, I could say a lot of things. I already have some videos like this in this channel. If you like, go and check them out. But here are 2 points. First, never stop working. 2, never release projects before you've finished them. Don't even talk about them. That way, you keep your satisfaction unreleased and you focus all your energies on your creative work. Well, those are the 2 things I can recommend. Also, try to have fun. This is what that whole thing is about. And then finally, Alistair MacLellan asks, are there any projects for the future? Following my previous point, there are some things going on, but I would never like to discuss them. However, I don't want to jinx them. However, if you do subscribe to me on Patreon, you can see some sneak previews from my upcoming projects, such as the All Tomorrow's Redux or the upcoming Snaiad world design book. Go and donate $1 and you can see them for yourself. So these were Alistair MacLellan's questions. Thank you so much, and I hope this helps your project. As always, please comment and let's have a discussion. Have a nice day or night wherever you are. Goodbye.